Hello and good evening, and thanks for joining us for All Mankind Season 2, Episode 4, Pathfinder is over, and it has been since March 12th of 2021, but we're just getting started here on July 7th of 2025. And we should continue our mission to watch every episode of For All Mankind and talk all about it. I'm Dave Mader, streaming here live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or you might be listening to us in audio version. We got a great panel, once again, to break this all down. Coming in first, like the Pathfinder shuttle, cutting through red tape and Cold War tension, graceful, composed, and never forgetting his checklist, even under nuclear threat. It's Kevin Millard.
That definitely describes me perfectly. You know of my fondness for checklists and just being on the ball.
And yeah, clipboards, all of it.
And Cold War threats, Kevin. Don't
Cold
forget
War
those.
threats and red tape. You know, that's you, Kevin. Coming in here next, broadcasting from Ottawa, where red maple leaves whisper classified intel and duct tape doubles as peace treaties. He's the panel's national treasure in cosmic engineering. It's Adam Woodward.
What an introduction. And don't forget the red tape, Dave. There's lots of that here.
The red maple leaves as well, Adam. Welcome. Okay. Coming in next, if Ed Baldwin needs someone to tell Gordo to suck it up and go full macho astronaut mode, he'd hand him a headset and say, talk to this guy. It's Jody Simpson.
You know what? I like that intro. That's a good intro. I like it. And yes, I would tell people off.
Of course. And last but not least, of course, 3 weeks out of comms and back like Pathfinder with a flawless touchdown here to recalibrate our emotional sensors and remind us that the heart matters just as much as hardware. It's the great Heather Narduzzi.
Hello. Welcome back to me.
Welcome back to me. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. We're glad to have you back, Heather.
Yes.
I personally am glad I'm back to Heather.
I'm
Yes.
glad Heather's back. I think we all are. It's three episodes we've missed you, Heather. You've been you were, two of them were social, I believe, and one was maybe you were ill, or I'm trying to recall now. But regardless, you haven't been here since episode 1, so we're glad to be able to catch up with you here. Is she frozen?
I think she is.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Or she's screwing with us. One of the two.
Oh, there she is.
There we go.
You were frozen, but it was like on a nice, really smile, so it was just seemed like you were waiting for me to stop talking.
Oh, I was just posing.
Well,
Dave was just
voguing.
like, smiling. I'm going to keep talking.
It looked like an Instagram post. It really did.
Yes. Tonight we are talking Pathfinder, the 4th episode of Season 2, the 14th episode overall. Written by David Weddle and Bradley Thompson and directed by Andrew Stanton. It's pretty much June of 1983 in terms of the timeline of the show. And in this episode, with a little help from Molly, Ed plans a career change as his old Jamestown crewmates Gordo and Danielle struggle. So lots more happening with the characters in this episode. I think it's more of a setup episode yet again, everybody. 4 episodes of setup, but that only means a very exciting last few episodes, I'm sure. Let's go to Kevin first. How are you feeling about this episode?
About the same as I have every other episode this season. It's good. Like, I'm enjoying the story. It's just not like, were they even in space at all in this episode?
No space in this episode.
Right. So, like, I'm enjoying. I love what they're doing with Gordo and
We see you launched.
and
We saw a launch, but we didn't really see them get into space. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think my complaint is the same as Ellen's. We're stuck on the moon, and we're stuck.
Yeah.
It feels
we're trying to get
like
to
the
Mars,
show
Thomas
is
Paine.
stuck.
When are we getting to Mars?
Yeah.
And Thomas Paine's like, wait till season 3. It's coming season 3 right now. We're fighting the Russians on the moon. What do you want me to do? It's the way it's got to be in season 2. That's the 80s. That's the Cold War. Over to Jody. How was Pathfinder for you? As an
I didn't
installment?
mind it. There were parts that were definitely draggy, and kind of as Kevin elaborated there. It's a slow burn. It's still enjoyable, but there's not a lot of space going on right now. There's a lot of talk of space, but not space. And the scene with what's her name? The lady who her husband suicided, which I don't know if we're allowed to say
Danielle.
on. Yeah, Danielle. Sorry,
Sam.
Danielle with I guess his sister. I guess it was.
Sister, yes.
Yeah, her sister or in-law or former sister-in-law.
I just felt like it wasn't genuine. Like when it comes to acting, like it didn't feel like it was a genuine scene. So
Okay, you're breaking up a bit there. I'm just gonna take off your echo cancellation.
No.
So, okay, Heather,
sorry.
how have you been?
Hi. Good. I like to watch the episode right before we do the podcast, but because I wasn't on the last 2 weeks, I watched the last 3 episodes in a row. So a lot has happened in the last 3 hours. I really liked this episode for a lot of good character moments, but I agree, there's not much going on in space yet. And why are we adding this new Pinciotti redhead guy or whatever his name is? Like, we don't care about him, okay? And also, where's Jeff? Because I really wanted to congratulate him on the return of Aleda.
Well, we congratulated him last week on that, but we believe he's going to his sleep study. He's long been overdue for a sleep study, and he didn't specifically tell me he wasn't coming tonight, but Kevin helped me put together the pieces, so thank you, Kevin.
Okay.
As I try to analyze the intents of my brother from only 24
Communication
hours ago.
is the strongest point that you guys have as a bond.
Yeah, we're very
yes.
strong on our communication. We do a good job.
Very
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah, that guy from the Air Force getting added to the crew of Pathfinder. Even though
We
he's
have
redhead.
enough characters to keep up with already. We don't
Sure.
need a new rando that's introduced at the start of season 2. And
Your
Get
breaking
outta
point
here,
is
dude.
that one guy.
Well,
one
he's
guy.
really
Like,
annoying.
there's like 1,000 already in this show. Like, what's one more? Like, come
No.
on.
Yeah, he's not very endearing so far, but
No.
maybe he'll grow on us. I can't really remember.
I think they're
actually-
setting him up. to
Nope,
die.
blow him out the airlock.
All right.
Scram, dude.
Adam, how are you doing?
Dave, I'm good.
Good.
I quite enjoyed this one actually. I thought that it set things up well. It didn't leave like after last week's discussion around that conversation at the Baldwin's house and the emotion in that one. Jody's, Danielle and Clayton's sister didn't that scene didn't drive that emotional intensity. However, I did like you. And we'll get to that, but and I did really like the race to the Cape.
I can't hear him.
What do you mean you can't?
Keep going.
Yeah, Ed and Gordo to the Cape, and that was really great. Good ending.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I like we talked about the scene in the previous episode with the whole Baldwin family and their whole blow up over Annapolis and that thing in the living room. The scene that happens between Gordo and Ed in like the hangar here, I think is one of the other iconic scenes of this show for me, because you expect Ed is like, I guess, the lead of the show, maybe to say the right thing at the right time. I don't know if he does that so much.
Are we really surprised from Ed Baldwin for the year that he's a shit friend too and a bad commander and motivator? I don't think necessarily he's a bad commander. That's
I don't think that
Gordo's ass was put into a plane. I don't know where you guys are on here, but as far as I'm considering, mission accomplished.
Well, I think that
And
part
it
of me
was
wonders, is this what Gordo needs to hear to snap out of his little funk or not?
I
Did
believe
this
so.
did this help Gordo, or is it a negative?
It's fun to characterize his complete mental breakdown as a little funk. Like
His complete mental breakdown.
Yes.
but you got to wonder, guys, would they have put anybody else through that program if they broke down like that?
Probably not. I think there would be a lot of. I don't work at NASA. I've never been there. Well, I've been to the Maryland Center, but I don't know enough to know if they. I would imagine that they keep an eye on these astronauts and would want to make sure they pass all these psych tests before they go up, right?
If
he passed
people's
all his
lives are
tests.
depending on the job they do, you got to make sure they have to be in tip-top shape.
They
I
can't
think
get claustrophobic in the suit.
Yeah, I think that should be one of the tests. I think, like, do you see ants? Like, it should be another test on just things.
Are they real or are they
Are they
fake?
real ants or fake ants? Like, this is
Well,
important.
guys, they were real
That
ants.
actually-
It's fine.
That actually was one of my favorite parts of their conversation when he realizes that they were real ants. It's like, wait,
Yeah,
they were
because he's
real
like, oh,
ants?
shit,
you
it's
saw?
Tom again.
He's like, what do you want from me?
I was expecting him to be like, "Oh fuck, I got ants in my fucking restaurant now. What am I gonna do now?" You know,
Yeah. The health commission will not
costing
like
me
that.
a fortune. My car throws a rod like in the parking lot, and now I got ants all over my damn restaurant. You know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk all about it. Let's break down the episode. Spoilers, of course. And this is a live stream, so any comments or questions you have about the episode, feel free to chime in. So we're gonna jump in. So the episode begins with someone making breakfast, setting the placemat. Here a couple of eggs and bacon, Minute Maid orange juice. That looks like turkey bacon, actually. We see this waiver put down, a newspaper. Talk about the Reagan administration. And we see it's Ed and Kelly. Ed's the one the breakfast is being made for by Karen. As she's getting ready here, he heads over to have a seat at the table, and the first thing is, look, it's a waiver to drop out of their cruise, because they're going to I don't know, some kind of cruise. And Ed's like, "What's this about, Karen?" And she's like, "Well, you can't go on a cruise because you're going back to space." And he goes, "I am. I'm the head of the astronaut office. What are you talking about?"
Okay, can we stop right here?
Yeah.
Karen is a psychopath. All right. Number one, you give one piece of bacon. What the hell is wrong with this woman?
And
You
she
don't do
steals
that.
it.
She steals it,
Yeah,
actually.
and then she takes it from him, so he gets no bacon.
Right.
And that
She's
bacon
a
really
psychopath.
cooked very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, she could have been already cooking it. Just
No, she was
eating
not. She put it on raw. I saw it.
it. Oh, did you? Okay.
She put it on raw. Well, yes. So she.
Yeah.
we-
Who
we-
puts on one raw piece of bacon?
No.
see
That raw piece of bacon is the one she's cooking now for herself after she eats this one piece of bacon.
God, she really is a
true.
psychopath.
You gotta know how to do it.
Yeah, she doesn't know. Anyway, but she tells it. She basically decides that Ed should go back to space. That he's like the whole argument they had in the previous episode with Kelly, and that he had been holding back ever since he returned from Earth following the death of Shane, and then adopting Kelly, and then he took a desk job for the last 9 years, right? And Karen feels like he's not happy in that role, and he needs to go back and be an astronaut again, and return to to being an active astronaut, effectively. And Ed's really surprised by this. He's not quite sure how to react, but Karen knows that deep down that's what he needs to make him happy. So she's encouraging him to do this for this. So that's why they can't go on the cruise. But she also tells him that, when you go back, I'm not going to be that same housewife I was before when you were the astronaut in like the 1960s, early 70s. I can't do that anymore. I have the restaurant to run now. I just can't. We knew she had a lot of unhealthy habits. Like if he was sleeping on the moon, she would sleep on Earth, even if it was the middle of the day. And she, all these kinds of rituals that she's not going to return to. She's a different person now.
And the attached to the squawk box. And all that as well, yeah.
So that's a little disclaimer she gives Ed here, as and she eats his bacon.
Psychopath. Absolute
he's-
psychopath.
He's left to kind of ponder all this.
No,
as
he's
he
pissed off about his bacon. It has nothing to do with pondering.
Well, it could be.
He's like, why did she take my bacon? And why did she only make me one piece? And I'm married to this.
And why is it a smiley face? Yeah, all these questions are important.
Oh, this is
Anyway, he heads
ridiculous.
to JSC to work, and he's looking around his office, kind of considering what Karen has told him on this morning. Looks at the astronaut board with all the astronaut assignments, and then he looks
He's
across
like,
the room.
I'm better than all these people.
He's like, I have all the power to assign. I can assign myself to whatever mission I want. And he looks at the Pathfinder model, which is the new space shuttle that they have, and
And then they play Lover Boy. Awesome.
Yeah,
CanCon, loved
Canadian band too.
it. Yeah.
Everybody's working for the weekend.
Everybody's working for the weekend. Yeah, love it. So that's our teaser for the episode. Ed is going back to being an astronaut, like Deke before him. And, leaving the astronaut office, so we head into the episode after that.
Didn't work well for Deke though.
Didn't work out so well for Deke.
Yeah,
no. So
that's the first thing I thought when he put himself on the mission. I was like, "Oh, Deke."
Yeah, we saw how this worked out for Deke. Anyway, then after the credits, we catch up here with Gordo, who's getting fitted for his suit. He's flirting a bit with this technician in the fitting a bit. But they have kind of a cordial thing, asking how it fits. But once they put the helmet on to Gordo, even the skull cap first, I guess there's a little bit of anticipation that he's, but he's also trying to hide all this anxiety he's having from, the others here at NASA as much as he can. So getting into it, flirting. And then they put the bucket on him here, the helmet. And as soon as they close that latch on him, it's like, uh-oh. And we see it from his perspective, from inside the helmet. Obviously the voices are muffled and he can't hear them because they're supposed to be coming through comms, but he can hear them. He can hear them through the radio, but he's completely disoriented. We see this blurred effect on the visuals as he is trying not to, I guess, lose it. Here?
Well, and he's also exasperating a lot, so what's happening is it's actually fogging up everything too.
Right, he's breathing too heavy, yeah. And so it's a lot of fog happening here. So finally, I think he sort of comes around. They take the helmet off of him, and he was like, "Oh, it was all out. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'm good." But then he has to, he gets out of the suit, goes into a private room here, and just sort of the aware of it all, and he has I guess a panic attack would be the right way to explain this. Mm-hmm. He's hyperventilating. He's clearly not doing well. So Gordo,
they did a good job with him panicking though, because I've had those type of attacks, and I can tell you it gets pretty bad pretty quick. So it's definitely cool how they do it.
Gordo's trying to work his way through it. He just needs a pep talk from Ed. He doesn't know yet. Anyway, so then we're heading over here to the outpost where Ed is getting shots ready. 3 shots here. The shots are being poured here by Danny Stevens, who of course now works at the outpost as a waiter and bartender. Tells Danny to leave the bottle as the High Bob crew is here. Gordo, Danielle, and Ed from way back when. As they're here to kind of celebrate a couple things. The fact that 2 old astronauts, referring to Gordo and Danielle, aced their proficiency tests. So even though Gordo's having all these other issues, he's academically on paper, he's doing fine with the assignments. And he's like, guess what? Somebody's a new commander of Pathfinder's going up. It's whatever, and they're kind of making fun of him because must be nice to be king to assign yourself the top job to the top mission here. And this is where Ed delivers that news that he's going to be the new commander of this mission, the Pathfinder mission. Anyway, so after that news is kind of broken, then Gordo kind of opens up about what happened to him earlier with the suit and the panic attack and everything else. And they go, did you tell anyone else about this? He goes, of course not. There's no one of course I would never. And there's a conversation here, you worked through those issues. All that happened to you on the moon 9 years ago. You're a different man now. I don't know. It's a little bit of rationalization. And Ed just punches him in the arm and says, you'll be fine. Just snap out of it,
Yeah, good pep talk. Snap out of your little funk.
Snap out of your little funk. The
answer real.
The answer real? Anyway, Danielle, you can see on her face in a couple of these scenes that she's not so sure about Gordo, that she's not as confident in him as Ed is, but she doesn't say much anyway.
Well, I don't think Ed's confident either. I think he's just moving forward. That's
Ooh.
Yeah, because I don't know. There's part of because Ed doesn't have to do this for Gordo, but there's a part of it. Gordo's his friend, and he wants to help him, but
Ooh.
Ed's help might not always be the most helpful. It would be the only ways. Okay, so they say, well, hey, if you're going to lead Pathfinder though, then who's going to lead the astronaut office? And he's like, I got somebody in mind.
And then we cut to Molly Cobb living her best life in the bathtub.
Indeed, in a bubble bath with sunglasses on and a joint in her mouth. She's chilling out here. Somebody's at the door, and it's Ed, who says,
For the record, I've done that, just so you know.
Good to know. I'm not much of a bath person myself.
Maybe not the sunglasses, but
yeah.
the other things apply. Bubble
She's
baths
got
are
her.
awesome.
She's got her.
I don't care how not manly that is.
Yeah, it's okay. You can have a bubble bath, Jody. It's all good.
I will,
Um,
and I'll enjoy it.
yeah. Anyway, Molly's been missing her golf games. Ed's here to visit, and he goes, "Are you alone?" She goes, "Nope, I got my gun." So I was like, "Okay, Molly's got a gun." Molly's got a. Oh, it's Janie's.
Great Aerosmith song.
Yeah. Since I married Jane, I've learned many songs have Jane or Janie in them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ed's offered a beer or a joint, but he doesn't do the reefer, so he's good with the beer. Anyway, he eventually transitions over to talk to Molly and says he wants her to be to take over his old job, to be the new head of the astronaut office. And she doesn't really want this gig. She's not too interested on the offer after she kind of gets over the initial shock. That it's a pain in the ass. There's a lot of politics in it and everything else. But then he positions it as, but like after your 6 months sick leave is up, you can then assign yourself to whatever mission you want, just like I'm doing now. Yeah. Just like Deke
we can
did
all
before.
die in space.
I feel like they should make a rule for whoever is the head of the astronaut office should not be able to assign themselves to missions. I feel like this should be like a prerequisite.
I would imagine that probably already exists. Like
it doesn't seem so. This is the second time it's happened.
You can't just go back into active duty. I don't think it works that way. I think there's a whole bunch of procedures. That
even if you're the one in charge of who gets to be on active duty,
there's still somebody that's still overseeing that. I'm sure.
Well, Thomas Paine theoretically. Well, it depends if Thomas Paine or Margot would want to, veto him. I guess in that matter. But
yeah. I guess.
Anyway, she kind of after Molly thinks about this for a moment, she kind of goes, okay, maybe, and she decides she's going to take the offer here that Ed sold her on the idea. And she's then, Ed's leaving, like, you can buy me a nice bottle of scotch as a thank you. Glenfiddich is nice. He mentions another brand I don't recall. Let's get on that. Anyway, she kind of goes, Molly Cobb, head of the astronaut office. Baller. Let's go. So anyway, that seems like an interesting next step for Molly.
The thing that pisses me off about this show is now that they've made characters that I don't like likable to me, I know they're going to kill them. And that's the problem that I have now.
You feel like Molly's now doomed?
I'm sure Molly's gone. Gordo's probably gone too. But I don't know when that happens or if it does.
We'll see. I won't spoil it. Anyway,
please don't.
Speaking of characters that are gone, though, Clayton.
That guy's gone.
Yeah, we transition over here to Clayton, who is the late husband of Danielle, to his sister's house. And we get this scene between Danielle and her former sister-in-law here, who seems very icy towards Danielle.
She's a
bitch. They talk about not having a lot of time to speak at the funeral. But Danielle has brought some old birthday cards from their mother and a couple other things that she thinks that she might want to have, that the sister may want to have. So she does thank her for that. But then she says, hey, maybe we can put all that animosity from before behind us. But the sister's not too interested in reconciliation here. Seemingly...
When she just says, why? Like,
Why?
Why? Yeah.
I get the feeling that she partly blames Danielle for Clayton's depression and eventual suicide.
Well, you get
Oh,
the
I think that's
impression, or she
blatantly
straight up
obvious.
says it.
Yeah, it's blatantly obvious.
Well, she says that I might get the impression, and so and,
Now,
yeah.
listen, if I were Danielle and I said, maybe we can try to have a nice relationship, and she said why, I would have been like, okay, thanks, see ya, bye, good night.
Right. I'm sorry, I don't remember the sister's name.
I don't
offhand,
either.
But
It doesn't matter.
One major issue she seems to have with Danielle is that Danielle is more patriotic about being American, and that allowed Clayton to be sort of swept up in that. And Clayton, he wasn't drafted to go to Vietnam. It seems like he voluntarily signed up to go. And his time in Vietnam maybe broke whatever spirit he had around that. Maybe not more of a maybe.
I'm sure that would have.
The sister talks about when MLK was assassinated, some of the soldiers threw parties, and not his platoon specifically, but that I think the sister looks at Danielle and Clayton for serving the country as being what would be the word, like contrarian, complicit, yeah, in everything else, and she also tells Danielle that, I know about how your arm broke for real those 9 years ago, and that you did it to protect. She says some white boy, but she means Gordo, and she goes, well, that was my friend, and she at first she was surprised that Clayton would tell her this, because she told Clayton in confidence, but she says, Clayton told me everything. We had no secrets as brother and sister. I'd be like, okay, well, I don't know. Clayton was a tortured soul, I gotta say. Anyway, so as Danielle's getting to leave eventually, she offers him one of Clayton's medals from the war, the one he didn't throw away, because Danielle says, I saw him throw all his medals away, and we saw that scene in season 1, but not this one. Anyway, and then she talks about that she's going back to space, and she's like, after everything that's happened, you're going back up there to be, I don't know, like a mascot for them or something. So anyway, do any of the sisters' critiques of Danielle seem valid? Is my question.
Well, I think the way she left it was very interesting. And the analogy of, you're riding the back of the bus.
Yes.
And this is now the 80s, so this is beyond the 60s and MLK's death and all that. But so clearly there's still some discrimination in the country. 2025, and I think that was a very poignant point, and it really motivated Danny to take action when she got back to NASA.
Well, it does. This conversation does inspire her to go talk to Ed later on, and ask to be in command of a mission, not to be at the back of the bus, etc. But
I don't think her critiques of Danielle are valid at all. Her critiques of the system are totally, but what's Danielle like? She's a fucking astronaut.
Yeah, but an American astronaut,
well, what else would she be?
Well, yeah, but you know what though? I think that there's part of this whole thing is NASA's done its thing now. They put a black woman in space. We're done. We've checked that box. Move on. But the point being here is that you can't just stop. You got to go a little further. And this is what the point is with Danny going to talk.
When she goes to talk to Ed about it, yeah. and Ed hears her out.
And Ed would never understand that. He's a white guy who's top of his class and runs the program. And
that wouldn't occur to him per se. So Danielle leaves a little shaken from this conversation with her former sister-in-law. We then go to a scene here with Ellen and Thomas Paine in Thomas Paine's office late one night. They're having a drink.
This was a great scene too.
Yeah, we learn more about Thomas Paine. He talks about, he's kind of giving Ellen advice too. He's talking about her becoming more of a political actor. He talks about how he's different people for different
play
purposes.
a role.
You play a role. He talks about, she asks him if he was recruited to the job, but he said, no, I lobbied for this job. I wanted to be the head of NASA. I had to get in there, and I had to be a certain type of person with Nixon, and then I had to be a certain kind of person with Reagan. But he's very much entrenched with the Republican Party, and that's his team. But that he's I guess being able to navigate that world is kind of how he's grooming her here.
I really like Thomas Paine more after this scene.
Yeah, he talks about having been in the Navy and during World War II, and he was on a submarine in the South Pacific, and they would look up at the stars at night if they were like on the surface, and he wanted to know all of them, and he went home and bought a telescope and after the war, and just that's how he kind of decided he really wanted to get involved with the space program, and here he is. And
the fact that he wanted to be there gives him more credibility and likability, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than just a bureaucrat that's being, shoved into NASA.
Right. He's not just he's more than that. He's got a passion for it. He talks about also like a little bit about this idea of being self-funded. I don't totally understand this business model.
So the whole idea here is that right now, if NASA just develops something, they can't sell it. They can't sell the technology and profit off it. So what he's saying here is that they've now been cleared to sell things as they develop them, and then they'll be self-financing. So they don't have to ask the money. Everything they have to do right now, they have to go to the government and say, I need $1 billion to go to Mars. And it's more like 10 billion. But in this model, everything they sell, they'll get a patent, a royalty for, essentially.
Gotcha. So if they invent a really cool new engine or something or whatever it is, then they can make that revenue. Gotcha. Because they have all the best minds in the country, right? Working with them.
Yeah.
So theoretically.
Now the next question should be where did the money from Velcro go? Because it's everywhere.
Exactly. Well, we know that T'Pol's grandmother invented it.
Yes.
Or brought it to Earth in Carbon Creek, Star Trek Enterprise. Anyway, there's also this part of the conversation here between Ellen and Thomas near the end where he's talking about like the different people he was with Nixon and Reagan and to get the job. But he kind of says to Ellen, like, there's kind of a different you. He talks about there's a different him when he goes home to his wife as well. And you can see that this is kind of resonating with Ellen, even though she's not really saying it out loud, her sort of dual identity that she kind of leads, her public persona versus her private life and all of that. So it's interesting. I do like the scene, and it's kind of makes you like Thomas Paine more, in my opinion, and it's interesting to see this dynamic with Ellen and him developing. And then we stay with Ellen as we transition to another scene back at the Wilson household. We see the stack of mail, and Larry Wilson and his boyfriend are having some shots as they're getting ready to go to a concert. Does anyone remember what concert they were going to go see? Okay, it was a famous band, I think.
I don't, but it was something very gay, and this is a very gay discussion. And then Ellen opens a book of poetry from Pam that is so lesbian. Amazing.
They were going to some drag queen show, weren't they?
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah, they were.
I feel like it was a concert or something. But anyway, Ellen's come home and they have a little chat. Why don't you come? But no, I got to get up early for a briefing.
It's wild to see Larry in his going out apparel. In his wide lapels. He is wearing leisure suit Larry right now. And like
he's leisure suit Larry. Yeah.
He is.
A little bit past the 70s. I think it's a little...
I think that was definitely intentional.
Yeah.
Some sort of nod, I think, to Sierra game.
It was probably a nod to Leisure Suit Larry. Actually, good point. Ellen turns him down to go along, but he says, "Why don't you read your stack of fan mail that's been here? You haven't touched it since you got back, right?"
Mail.
So, moon mail, they call it. Right? So she starts opening it up. There was something here from an insurance company. I wasn't sure if this was meant to have any significance, but it's just an amendment rider.
I think it's basically to say that they're not going to cover her, or it's a different. Oh, insured $20. Spouse nobody.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think it matters. But anyway, the next piece of mail, she notices something here from Pam Horton, right? I know I remember her name is Pam. I don't always remember the last name, but it's Pam Horton, who's sent her a package. This is like first class mailer cancellation. This has got some stamps on it. She spent some extra money on this. Let me tell you. Anyway,
Had to. It was over.
Lives in Austin now.
She's in Austin, and so in Austin compared to Houston is many hours away, right?
Yeah, it's about a 5-hour drive.
Okay. Anyway, so the book of poetry, as Heather mentioned, a note from Pamela Horton. Hey, I saw you on the news. Welcome back to Terra Firma. Thought you might enjoy this, Pam. And her book of poetry called Muse Number 10.
And there are 2 lupins on the cover, and it's like Xeroxed and stapled together. It's basically a zine. I love this. It's amazing.
Muse Number 10. Does that mean there's 9 more before that?
They're all Ellen. They're
what,
all poems about Ellen.
They're all, yeah. Guess which one's about you, and they're all going to be about Ellen. Yeah, that's probably correct. Yeah, we see here just the biographical information on Pam. Pamela Horton received an MFA in English from the University of Texas. She teaches creative writing and poetry at Austin Community College. Her poems have been published in Tri-Quarterly, Poetry Northwest, Emergency Horse Magazine.
Emergency Horse Magazine.
I didn't know that was the thing. And
the pinnacle
I happen to be
of poetry.
subscribed to Emergency Horse Magazine, and it's phenomenal.
She resides in Austin with her cat, Flannery.
Gay.
So, there might be some signals here. Anyway, we see the little message here to Ellen. Can you guess which is about you? I agree with you, Heather. They're probably all about Ellen as she sits down.
This is how I
here.
used to get my 2600 magazine when I was younger. It was like this.
We also noticed like astronauts are being mentioned here in her poetry. So it's pretty direct.
I don't dig this party anymore. Was the name of one of them.
I don't dig this party anymore. This one says Muse Number 1. Anyway, so Ellen is sitting down and kind of reconnecting with Pam through this book of poetry, at least for the moment. So she's
reading poems and yearning. Like there's nothing more queer than that.
Yeah, true. So good on you, Ellen. Then we go to the launch pad here in Cape Canaveral.
Space!
Space! Kind of.
This is not space. This is
still the ground, still the earth, but
okay, well.
And the crew is like, okay, get ready for her close up. And when we change over, we see it's Tracy.
I can't stand Tracy now. I cannot take her. Like after last weekend, now this.
Is she too much of a media celebrity now? She's got a camera pointed right at her.
She get the Meg Ryan haircut. I just do not enjoy Tracy anymore. I used to think she was okay, but no.
I think that's intentional. Yeah. I think that Tracy's kind of lost her way in a bit here in this period of her life.
In a lot of ways, apparently.
Yeah. She's good at posing for the camera. Being sort of a celebrity astronaut is kind of her role. She is an astronaut, but she's, I don't know, a little bit more fame centric. As we see, she's looking at the camera, and who's at home watching? But Gordo, with
looking fantastic, by the way,
looking his best self.
They really did like a good job this episode of making Gordo look his absolute schlubbiest. Like when he was at. Sorry, Jody. What?
I said it's a little known fact, but I'm actually his body double.
Heather.
You got that beer shelf right here.
Oh,
no, but
sure.
like when they were sitting at the table in the bar, him and the other two high bobs, they were both like Natalie dressed, fresh haircut, looking good, and Gordo's like raggedy mustache, hair sticking off everywhere, wearing a half unbuttoned polo shirt, and now he's in a stained undershirt using his gut as a beer shelf. Like, is very indicative that Gordo is struggling and Tracy is famous and gorgeous.
Yes.
Hold on. I'm struggling if I have that shirt on and I drink beer.
If you have your tidy whities on.
If you're watching your ex on national television in this sad ass brown room, yes, you are struggling.
And don't forget the tidy whities.
Don't forget those. Yeah, no, Gordo's rocking it, I guess. Watching his ex-wife here on
All right,
television.
point taken. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And the socks, girl.
The socks too. Yeah.
I don't wear socks. So.
He's a George Costanza picture right there.
Mhm.
Paint me like one of
Gordo.
your French girls.
Yeah, he changes the channel. He tries to tune this out. Ends up putting on Wheel of Fortune with Pat Sajak, and I believe this was the year that Vanna White came on. He introduces Vanna White. She comes along.
So who spun
Look
the
at the
letters before
shoulder
Vanna showed up?
pads.
Yeah.
Love this dress.
I'm not familiar with the history of Wheel of Fortune, so how did they spin the letters without her?
I don't know if they did.
There was another Vanna before that.
There was a pre-Vanna.
I don't know.
Anyway, he puts this movie on. This might come up in fun facts. Like this seems to be something real. Some movie
It is
that-
something real, but I don't know what it is. I loosely recognize it, but
Well, apparently there's only 4 channels because Gordo comes back to the launch eventually. Oh no, he goes to this game show first, and then
It's Jeff.
It's Jeff. Jeff from that
That's
show.
where Jeff is.
That's where he is.
There he is.
He's
Yeah,
on
not
Wheel of
asleep,
Fortune.
He puts the show about. He puts mute on though. He doesn't want to actually listen to this as he's
Well,
watching.
he doesn't want to hear the horse shit she's saying.
Yeah. So this is as close as we get to space as we see the ship go.
The whole
launch here.
wink thing, though, is annoying as hell.
I thought it was going to explode.
You thought she was gonna die on the launch pad
Yep.
like this?
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be Challenger. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but because in this timeline, they figured out the Challenger thing early, I think. The O-ring. Anyway, then we transition back to JSC, where our favorite redheaded astronaut is getting a sandwich from the vending machine.
Why is it the tiniest sandwich in the world?
Maybe he
This
just
is before
has
they had
really big
obesity in
hands.
the
It,
U.S.
it also comes pre-squished.
Yeah.
Well,
Squished
it is
by
out
the-
of a vending machine.
It's
at
out of those little
NASA,
ring
I
things.
Come
suppose.
on now.
Yeah.
I think it's to illustrate what like a low-level flunky he is. That the only thing he gets to eat is a pre-squished sandwich out of the vending.
They don't let him into the NASA cafeteria.
Yeah, he doesn't
Not
get
allowed.
whatever Ed
No,
eats for lunch.
no redheads allowed.
Yeah.
No.
So Ed comes to see him. As we know, Ed and him have had this kind of contentious relationship where I don't even remember his name.
I have to
so-
admit, though, the Navy hat was a real dick move.
Yeah. So he hands him a Navy hat, and he goes, "I'm in the Air Force. I can't wear this." And he goes, "Put it on." I guess. Oh, his name is
Piscotti.
Biscotti.
I was thinking Pinciotti because I was thinking of Donna from that 70s show.
Yeah,
That was
Biscotti.
her last
Also,
name.
red hair.
Yeah.
But, yeah, covers up this red hair, and he doesn't cover up that red hair to Ed's liking, so he's like, put it lower, better, just to screw with him, I guess.
I think before they take off, he should make him shave every bit of hair on his body. Just to be safe.
And then grease him like a seal.
Right. But also, Ed's losing all his power over this guy because he doesn't know Ed's not leaving the astronaut office. He won't be able to decide whether he gets on a mission or not.
Well, he technically still has the power over him because he is his captain.
Yes.
He is the commander of the mission. That
commander.
he's
As the
going
mission,
on.
yeah. He's like, so technically, yeah. So maybe that's why he selects him for this mission. He just like screw with this guy.
He's like, I'm gonna fuck with you one more time.
Right. I don't totally understand this rivalry between like the Navy and the Air Force if it's a thing in the Army.
Well,
but,
the Navy does have an Air Force-ish branch. They have naval aviators, which is what
right,
Top Gun
and so
is,
but so does the Army. They have aviators too. But if I was the Air
Technically, yeah.
Force, I would say, why don't we get all the planes? Like, isn't that our whole thing? Like, I thought the Navy was about boats. And the Army's about the tanks.
What are the Air Force and the Navy even doing? Let's go to space. We don't want any more boats. We don't want any planes.
No tanks. I'm with you. All right. Anyway, so he tells Piscotti he's on the mission. He's on right seat on Pathfinder. And then he gets all happy here. He's got his sandwich. He even gives a high fist pump here to this woman walking down the hall. So he's Piscotti. Let's go. And then Ed is cleaning out his office, taking down the picture here of Molly Cobb. He's in his last 2 hours on the job as the head of the astronaut office. Apparently he works till 6:00 every night. But who's coming to not today. Who's coming to see him? But it's Danielle. What can I do for you, Bob? And she basically says, I need to have a word, closes the door, and she says, I want to, she first says, thank you for putting me on a mission so quickly and for getting me, signed, but it's not enough. Basically, I need you to make me a commander of a mission. It's time that I command a mission. And there's this whole discussion here between Ed and Danielle about all of it, I guess.
And just denying the reality of what she's saying, like anybody.
I think that
anybody at the time would.
He does a very good job looking so uncomfortable in this conversation too.
Right. As she's kind of like laying cold hard facts out to him. It's really when they start looking at the astronaut board, and she goes, how many astronauts you got going? And he's like 200 and something. How many of them are black? Like 11? Yeah. How many of them are mission commanders?
I like the fact, though, when she asks all these questions,
though,
he knows the answers. Like,
he
he's
knows.
like, there's 11.
Yeah, he knows the count. He doesn't have to count them out, right? And
although you see, he gets her point when she asks how many are commanders, because he's like, one. Like, he doesn't just say one. He's very tentative about it.
Right. And he's kind of going along here. But, he's like, this is my last 2 hours on the job. And you come to me with this? Yeah, I do.
This is why I'm here.
And she also makes this strong point about like NASA being uniquely positioned to change the world through putting certain people in like missions like or positions like mission commander, right?
To change people's opinions.
And Danielle still has this stigma of being this woman who broke her arm on the moon and whatever. And I think that's part. She wants to change that too, but she also, I kind of, rebuff those comments that her former sister-in-law made about her being just like on the back of the bus. And, she says, I was the token person, back when we first started, but I was happy at the time to be that, but now I need more. It's gotta be more than that now, and, Ed's like, I can't believe you're coming to me this last 2 hours. See you. Okay. I'm going to my meeting. Peace. So Ed heads over to his meeting, and it's with like the top brass here at NASA. They got him a little cupcake to celebrate all his years of being the head of the office. It's a hostess, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, where's the other one? They come in
Somebody
packs
ate
of two. Who ate
They
it?
friggin' ate that one, man. They were
bullshit.
waiting around.
If you're gonna do
waiting
that,
for
you gotta give
Ed
them
to
both.
finish
A
up his
little Debbie.
conversation. So he comes in, got his little cupcake. Thanks, Ed, for all your service. And
He bats it away.
yeah, but he doesn't need it. And they get into the discussion. But then Thomas Paine drops the news, everybody, that that thing they talked about a couple episodes ago about this idea of a handshake in space between the American astronauts and the Russian cosmonauts. Well, it turns out the Russians said yes. And so now they got to figure out how to make this happen. And Margot and Ed and all of them.
Can you go back to that frame of Margot?
Yep.
It's exactly how I feel about a handshake in space.
Like, what is it?
We can just do that.
I understand the symbolism behind it, but like, can't you just do it on Earth?
Or on
Which
the
I think
moon?
is what you were going to say, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But
so,
that won't look as cool. So handshake in space it is.
Right. and figuring out how they're going to make this happen. They can't let them anywhere near the space shuttles, like Pathfinder
Margot's
or anything.
pissed. Look at her.
Margot's pissed with this whole idea.
Yeah.
But Thomas Paine, he wants a mission commander. He's like, can you name a commander? He's like, I got one for you right now. I got somebody in mind. And he says, oh yeah, who? And he says Danielle Poole. I think is the best choice. And Thomas Paine is a little bit hesitant with this.
Well, because this is a PR stunt, and he doesn't want anything to mess it up. And
it's a PR thing, and Danielle's PR is a little tarnished from
it's
what
already
happened.
bad, yeah.
I like that
But
shot.
also-
If you go back one frame there, where he says, "Oh, I don't think that's the best idea," and they all immediately are like, "Why not?" And then it cuts to this shot, so it's all of them versus him. You know, I thought
Right. It
that was
becomes
good.
it does.
Well,
It becomes
look,
the
look,
four
look,
versus
who's
one.
around the table here. You've got a lesbian, you've got a black general or whatever. I think he's a general, 2-star. You know, you've got the female,
The first woman
mission-
flight commander.
Yeah, and then there's
And
Ed.
Ed.
But
And then
Ed's
you got
just past his
super macho Ed.
uncomfortableness. No, but Ed's just
Also,
past
these-
his uncomfortableness on to Thomas Paine now. Like he's just, this is your problem now.
These
I've got
are all
stories.
her friends too. Like it's undeniable that she's qualified. I mean, Ed even lays it out when he says he's like she has extensive Apollo mission experience, and I was in space with her. Like he lays
Right.
out that she is actually the best candidate.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
not.
just a token command.
Right.
They
Right.
come to this conclusion that the best spacecraft used would be one of the old Apollo ones because it's not as classified anymore. It's there's no threat if the Soviets get near it. So and she's experienced with it, maybe more than some of the more the newer astronauts would be. So it makes complete sense, you know. And Thomas Paine is like, well, this isn't what I was expecting this conversation to be. Right.
He
Even
does, however, say he doesn't have a problem with it, but he just doesn't want to hear it from Washington. That's exactly what he said.
Right. He doesn't want to have to deal with Reagan or trying to convince Reagan, I guess, is more specific here. It's not like if it was up to him, I think he would say yes, but I think it's also about how the administration's going to want it. But the general here says, like, I know the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, which isn't, I don't know if it would be
He
called
knew the Secretary of Defense, as we said.
Secretary of Defense, and he'll back me up on this, right? You know, and
I love what he says to Thomas Paine. I got your back. I got
your back. Oi, you know. So they, by the end of this conversation, they've kind of forced his hand. Like he, you know, unless he wants to completely overrule everyone in the room, which I don't think he really wants to do. He's like, fine. So anyway, Ed is finally cleaning up his office about 2 hours after following this meeting. He's getting ready to, you know, pack up and move on to his next role.
He's like, guess what? In the last 2 hours of my tenure here, I solved racism. You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm done.
It's
I'm
over
off
for the
this
entire
base.
country.
And it was all my idea, too. So, but just then, as he's getting ready to count down the last few seconds, who's at the door but Thomas Paine, who says, can I have a minute? He says, you got one friggin' minute, right? And he goes, hey, I thought we were friends, man. What the hell was that? He doesn't like that he came in and made the suggestion of Daniel Poole and kind of called him out here.
Well, hold on a second. Thomas Paine brought the topic up. It wasn't like he would, you know, it was, you know, we're going to talk about this in the meeting.
True. Ed didn't know that was going to be on the agenda, but Ed's like, during the last conversation Ed had and what was being asked of him, it was like, okay, this is what I can do in my 2 hours that I have left in the job. But, you know, again, Thomas Paine thinking about the political ramifications and how this is going to spin with the media, and he's got other considerations. But anyway, so he's not super thrilled that Ed sort of didn't give him a heads up about this, but it's not really Ed's fault either. So anyway, but maybe a little bit of static between these two for his last day. You know, we should never give him that hostess cake. Is probably what he's thinking now, and a candle. That was too much.
No, he's thinking, I'm glad I ate the other one.
I'm glad I ate the other one. Yeah, that's what he's thinking.
You'll never get it now, bastard.
So he leaves, and then Ed, I guess Ed's a stickler. Wants to make sure that last second is up before he gets out of there. And then it transitions from that to like the next morning where his alarm clock goes off, gets out of bed with Karen, gets into his astronaut overalls again, slicks back his hair. He's back, baby. He's back. And he's got his Wheaties.
He's got to have his Wheaties. I loved this whole scene.
Yeah, it was a cool montage.
Who's on the cover of that? The Breakfast of Champions, of course.
It's a tennis player.
It's a tennis player. I can't tell who. Maybe McEnroe.
McEnroe, 80s. Yeah.
It would have been good if it was Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
That
would have been nice.
Anyway, and then the kid's delivering the paper to him here. He's like, "Hey, kid," you know.
I'm going to be an astronaut.
I'm going to be an astronaut today, even though I've been one before.
When I was a kid, I delivered papers on my bicycle, and I'll tell you right now, there's no way I would have went all the way up to the driveway. Like,
No.
you threw that fucker wherever.
By the time I was
landed.
delivering newspapers, they had this many flyers that were so thick, like
Oh,
you
yeah, we had to
could
pack
only
the
carry
flyers.
10 in your cart.
I love that Ed goes to throw the paper on the porch and he just hits the tree and it falls down. Like he
and he's
did
like,
anybody else
"It
catch
doesn't
that?"
matter. I'm the man." Yeah.
But
He
Ed's
looks at
heading
his
to his
Cadillac and his
He looks
Cadillac.
at his Cadillac. He goes, "Oh, I can't drive this thing. An astronaut wouldn't drive this thing." So he opens up the garage, and I guess this is a Corvette, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Corvette
Stingray.
Stingray. Yeah.
Corvette Stingray. I guess he had to do a little bit of engine work on it to get before it was ready to.
He
No,
probably
he,
had.
so he put the battery back on. Like he just put
he
it on the
probably
battery.
disconnected
Oh,
the
okay.
battery.
I know tons about cars. Anyway, he gets back in it. He starts driving it out.
What was the date on the license plate? Hold on. Go back. 74. Okay.
74.
So it's been sitting again because that's around the time he took the job as the head of the astronaut office. So he hasn't touched this car pretty much since then.
He probably hasn't touched the car since Shane died, honestly.
Yeah.
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 And so it's like Ed's getting back to his old self, I guess. He's got the aviators on, he's heading out, but then the car stalls like right away.
Should have checked the flux capacitor, Ed.
Yeah.
Game over.
And blocks himself in. Can't even take his other car.
You have to drive on into the grass.
Right there. So America.
They had to push it back.
It's like, what the hell? Anyway, down here at JSC, we got Piscotti waiting with his Navy hat on, his legs shaking as he's anticipating Ed Baldwin's arrival. And this is Sally Ride, who we meet in this episode, of the actress playing Sally Ride. She's talking to Piscotti. She's like, "Aren't you in the Air Force? Why are you wearing the Navy hat? Weird."
I lost a bet.
I lost a bet. She's like, "Oh, I bet. You must have been a bad bet." Anyway, but
Well, she's
My
like,
boss
"What was
is on
the
a
bet?"
weird power trip, and we had a really bizarre encounter by the vending machine. I was just trying to get a squishy sandwich.
yeah,
And Sally Ride's
Y'all-
like, "Yeah, cool, man."
cool, man.
He also touched me.
And then Ed comes
me a
in.
little
He's a
too
little late, Biscotti is at attention. Sally Ride, less impressed with Ed, but still formal. Anyway, as Ed is leading them to their new ship, as they unveil, they're getting ready. It's transitioning between two scenes. So we have Ed and Biscotti and Sally Ride, and then over on the other side here, we got Danielle, who I think this is down in Alabama, maybe, because I think that's where Margot said that the ship was being stored. And there's a security guard here who's showing her into the hangar where they've been storing this old Apollo ship. And this is going to be Danielle's command. This is going to be her ship. Meanwhile, Ed is unveiling his vessel, the Pathfinder, much more impressive, bigger, newer. I think that juxtaposition of the two commanders here, Ed and Danielle, and she's just as excited to be commanding her mission as well. And talking about the bests. Help me out if I'm missing anything here, guys. In here, it's not a lot of dialogue in this scene.
No, it's just mostly Danielle staring at Dusty Pod, and then the three of them basically talking about the mission.
Yeah, and the Pathfinder, we're told, is more advanced than the
nuclear.
Discovery and all that. So this is something that didn't really exist in our timeline, or
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's a nuclear version.
It's nuclear powered is the other thing that makes it a bit unique too, right?
Ooh.
So
I love that they explain. I mean, this is when I think this show does a good job of doing the alternate technology and go, this is going to shave 100. So what's a nuclear engine do for us? Well, it shaves 100 days off of the travel.
when we go to Mars, you
Yeah.
can go to Mars way faster, and there's a lot of
Or whatever it
advantages.
was. Some 100 sounds like a lot now.
Yeah,
No, they said 100 days.
It
Yeah.
was 100 days.
100 days.
And he even compliments Biscotti here. He's like, he's one of the best, even though he's got red hair, you know, and he's an Air Force douchebag. You know. Anyway, so Danielle's happy. She's looking at her new ship. There's a transition here, and then we're back in the outpost watching old wrestling.
Sergeant Slaughter
versus Nikolai Volkov.
I think this is live, like old meaning like 1983.
Yeah, from the time. It's meant to be live then.
Yeah.
With classy Freddie Blassie there and Howard Finkel. I know old wrestling. I don't know new wrestling, but anyway, it's Gordo is watching it back here at the outpost. Now drinking Pepsi, not drinking beer. He's
an astronaut again.
He's an
And
astronaut again.
he's about to get in a plane.
Yeah, he's about to fly a jet. So anyway, but and
So
Like
the
normally he'd have 2
traditional-
or 3 beers, but
yeah.
The
Karen
traditional
points that out to him.
pre-flight meal of Pepsi and spaghetti.
Are you telling me you can't fly a Talon without being intoxicated? You can't do that?
You
Are
can't.
they
don't
frown
think
upon it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they're all getting into it. You see Sergeant Slaughter, who I originally know from G.I. Joe, the cartoon, but, anyway, he was a wrestler,
Well,
too.
He was a tie-in. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and Gordo, I think, thinks wrestling's real. Because he's really into it.
Well, I like when the guy says to Tracy, which I think is Gordo's kid, isn't it?
Danny. Danny comes in.
Yeah, Danny, and he's like, "Oh, do you follow this?" She goes, "Yeah, it's hilarious."
She's like, yeah, it's hilarious. I love watching it. It's some fun. So it made me like Karen. And it made Danny like Karen, too. Anyway. So they're watching the wrestling.
He's looking for a dealer, so.
Yeah, Danny watching with his dad here, Gordo. We also see Piscotty's at the bar with his other friend who we saw in that first episode. They were the ones originally having that conversation. I don't remember her name, but she's like Piscotty's friend. And
She's from Bones, right?
yes.
Yeah.
That's not Aleda?
No.
Oh,
Nope.
No. Anyway, so she's talking about Scotty, and then she's like, "You're so afraid of Baldwin and whatever," and she's like, "Hey Ed," and then he looks around. He even puts the hat
The
on.
hat on.
And he's not there. Like she was just messing with him, and then he like this moment here where he's like, "Oh," and she just looks at him like so disappointed.
She's like, "You suck.
You suck. You have no pride." And then back to the wrestling where Gordo's watching Nikolai Volkov and Sergeant Slaughter, of course. He goes to reach for his Pepsi, and then there's ants. Ants all over his Pepsi. What is happening here with the ants? All over his spaghetti. He's Danny's like, "Are you okay, Dad? What's happening to you?" And Gordo doesn't know if he's losing his goddamn mind. But then all of a sudden, Karen comes in with spray, and she starts spraying the bugs.
Yeah. So she's like spraying the meal. She's spraying the drink tower, the glasses.
It was the 80s. They didn't know.
You're right.
And that
You're
shit-
right.
That,
I'm pretty
that
sure you
all
can't
had
fumigate.
DDT in it.
Oh, yes, it still does, Kevin. It's Texas.
Yeah. He's like, "I can't eat this. This is a horrible place to have
He's
it."
all
Anyway,
jacked up on DEET now. He's like, "Ooh."
it might affect his emotional mood. Okay, then we get this scene here in the hangar that I've been alluding to, where Gordo has put on his flight suit. He's left the outpost, but he's still shaken by the ants at the outpost over his spaghetti and his Pepsi. Ed walks up and goes, "Hey man, are you ready to fly? Let's head out." But Gordo's like, "I'm having a moment, man. I don't know. I can't." His complete breakdown, as Kevin alluded to.
It's a little funk.
He's
This
in
is
a little funk. I call it a little funk.
When
You
look
call it a
at
big
these
funk.
Two, though, and Heather, I'm going to call you out here because you've commented on Ed before. His looks, like Ed looks so put together. He's got the aviators on, right?
Yeah.
He comes around the corner. Look at him, and then like Gordo is a mess.
And even the
Ed is
angles
a
that they
naval
shot it
aviator.
from. Yeah,
he's-
Ed is
he's
like
tall.
standing tall and proud with his glasses and his gear on and everything, and Gordo's like hunched over and scared and vulnerable.
Rocking back and forth, going ants.
Well, and Ed's like, I'm about to fly, a T-38, so like, I'm gonna have some fun. Whereas Gordo's like, I hope there's no more ants up there.
And then this is where Ed's like, the ants were real? Like, you know?
He's like,
It's
oh shit, that time it was real? He's like,
it's one thing if you're imagining ants, but if you're seeing real ants and those are bothering you, I don't know what to tell you, you know?
I gotta tell her not to use that ant spray inside while people are eating.
Yeah.
Oh, what's gonna happen?
We're going to have a lot of lawsuits when all they sue us for food poisoning and other issues. Anyway, so Gordo, it's eventually Gordo, like, if Ed's not belligerent with him right away, right? It leads up to this, where it's once Gordo starts crying, maybe, I think that triggers something in Ed, where he's like...
Yeah, he's remembering trying to teach Shane how to ride a bike.
Right.
Because it's the same reaction.
Yeah, he kind of he turns on Gordo here, and he's like, Gordo goes, I don't know what to do, Ed. And he's like, you can try to be a fucking man. How about that?
That's right.
You know,
Stop crying like a little baby. This was hard to watch. It was sad.
I like this scene. I thought.
Do you really?
This is. You know what? These guys are about to like do a lot of shit that they're really, they're highly trained for and requires a lot of focus and everything. You can't have this guy on your wing. Like this guy
shouldn't be in the plane at all.
No.
Right.
He's having a breakdown.
Ed is the one who put him in the position to be here.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, you're upset? Stop being a little bitch and go fly this plane.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think Ed is in the right at all. Yeah. But I do like how he reacted.
I think there might be somewhere in between Ed's extreme and, saying like, hey, man, if you want this, you got to step up and do it. Like, no one can
I
make
love
you
how
do
he's
it.
like, well, we can always book you a flight on Pan Am.
Yeah, maybe you got a seat for you. I thought you were
won't get
Gordo
to fly
Stevens.
These Cool plane.
I guess you're Pan Am.
I thought you were a naval aviator.
Yeah.
That's some kind of jerk.
You little baby. And
well, I think the point is that, Ed or Gordo's looking for somebody to decide for him rather than just like decide you're in the program or not.
Right. Do you want this or not?
But that's Gordo to begin with. Gordo doesn't do anything unless somebody else tells him to do it.
Right, and we know that Gordo before was Mr. Confident, right? Before, basically, it was that time that whole time on the moon, but it was also this time that his marriage was ending, and he's been sort of this not the same person since, largely. And and Ed's like, well, you used to be somebody else, can you find that again? But Ed's pretty harsh to the point where Gordo is almost ready to fight. He says, "Careful, Ed. What you're crossing the line here."
And Ed's just like, "Okay, bring it."
Yeah,
done here.
Bring it on. Ed just walks away from him. Eventually,
I got to go fly a really fast plane.
Fast plane, yeah.
Are you gonna be a bitch, or are you gonna
Gordo's
come?
hand's still shaking here, but he ultimately decides to follow Ed and get into the jet. So and man up.
Time we see Gordo in the jet, and Gordo's back to being Gordo. Like it's so in a way, is Ed wrong here?
Well, I think Ed might agree with you, Jody. He might say, "Look, that's what Gordo needed to hear," and then you could look. He's flying the ship now. No ants. Perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
No this is probably the most ambitious thing Gordo has done.
To fly this jet, right? Yeah. I think flying one of these would be not as easy as flying other planes, right?
Well, these are T-38.
The ants are still there. They're just in his brain now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I do like the fact that they use the T-38s because the T-38s were actually used by NASA astronauts for training.
To go back and forth from Florida and all that?
Well, and just training in general. Like the flight controls apparently are very similar to what the shuttles ended up being and stuff like that. So it's it's kind of it's nice and accurate, which is nice.
Well, so Ed basically makes this proposal to Gordo over comms. Says like, let's why don't we go over like the Gulf of Mexico here and have a little bit of a
these
fake
are
dogfight.
training sectors. These are dogfight training sectors. So these are cleared airspace, which people aren't allowed to fly through. So these guys are allowed to go through and do this. To mess around like this. Yep.
So they decide they're gonna have their little dogfight with the middle finger salute first from Ed, and then from Gordo as it's on like Donkey Kong.
It always amazes me that these two can see each other at those distances, but I guess you can.
I guess you can. Not well, but you can.
I don't think you can do that maneuver in Top Gun where you do it like upside down and take a picture and stuff. I don't think you can do
No,
that.
that's
What?
you gotta be Maverick for that.
Top Gun's not real.
Top
Well,
Gun won't come
The
out for another 3
organization
years.
is, but I don't think the movie was very accurate.
Yeah, I wonder if that movie still gets made. Anyway,
I don't know.
back to the Outpost, where on the TV it's our old friend Linda Park from Star Trek Enterprise. Once again,
So
playing.
it is.
And it doesn't look like the woman has aged a minute.
No,
Like, it's
I saw her on the cruise. She
Yeah.
looks the same as she did 20 years ago.
She gets a little darker circles under her eyes, but I guess that was makeup anyway. But yeah, she looks the same.
She was super young when she was on Enterprise as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's true,
But
yeah.
anyways, talking about John Lennon's having a concert because he didn't die, remember, in this timeline, and he's
Yeah,
having a
that's why
concert
this timeline is terrible.
in Central Park. Yes, because you want John Lennon to be dead. It's just so he's having a concert to give peace a chance. How about that, Jody? Give peace a chance.
If he didn't die in this timeline, he's going to be canceled real soon. So don't worry about it,
Exactly.
Jody.
Yeah.
Anyway, then the news transitions to the Panamanian thing, where those U.S. soldiers were like captured by the Panamanians, and I guess they're actually sailors, right? I think they're Navy, and which Danny Stevens watching the TV back in the Outpost takes note of. The Panamanians are not happy about it.
Well, they sent in a team to rescue them.
Yeah, did that really happen in real life?
No.
No. Okay. Anyway, so then Danny's taking out the trash out back after this, and he runs into Karen, who's having a joint out behind the outpost, as she
Smoking
does.
the devil's lettuce.
Smoking it as Wayne Cobb got her on many years ago, and
Can't believe that she would even do that.
yeah, well, Danny, then he's like, hey, I can have some, right? And she's like,
You
you
think
can
that-
never.
Beyond the joint, is there something going to happen between these two?
I can't tell you anything, Adam.
All right.
So,
Well, my theory, and I don't know if it's accurate, but my theory is they're wiping out all the Stevens. I think all of them are going to
all 4 of them got to go.
Your theory or your wish?
Well, I don't know if I want them to wipe out Gordo. I've actually kind
Gordo's your favorite Stevens?
I've kind of warmed up to him now.
I think Jimmy Stevens is the least favorite of the Stevens for me. But anyway,
Jimmy was the one that had the headphones on, right?
Yeah, Jimmy's the youngest brother. Yeah. And then you got Danny here and Jimmy. But Karen says you can have some weed, but you can never do it with Kelly. You can never have weed with
Okay,
Kelly.
number one, anybody who's ever smoked a joint definitely wouldn't be holding it like that. Okay, so this kid has never had a joint ever.
No, yeah, he's only a first year midshipman. He's going to burn down the joint. Anyway, back to Gordo and Ed after this. They're having their little dog fight. It's hard to get good screenshots when the planes are going so
Yeah,
fast.
they're very fast. Yeah.
But eventually Gordo gets behind Ed here, and Ed tries to do a crazy maneuver to get away from Gordo, but Gordo
He
stays
does a
with him.
tailspin, which I don't think is something you should probably do in any jet plane. But
Well,
But
probably
remember,
right.
test pilots.
Test pilots.
These are test pilots.
Yeah,
well,
so they're little,
they know the restrictions of these.
and they're a little
planes.
crazy test pilots.
Yeah, they have no
Fear.
self-preservation instincts.
I want to know why when one engine goes out on a 2-engine plane, he had to eject, but that's a whole other.
Because it was I think it was because it was on fire and it would spread.
Yeah, they're
right?
always on fire.
I guess. I don't know. I'm not a naval.
They
aviator.
literally are fire. That's what they are.
The point is, Gordo eventually gets him back behind him, gets a lock, and wins the dogfight. Doesn't actually shoot down Ed, which is nice.
No,
of
they
him.
probably frown upon that.
Yeah, they would frown upon that at NASA.
They may call that treason.
Right. So Ed's Gordo got one best on Ed, but because Ed did that maneuver, I think he might have stalled his engine pretty bad here on the left side of the plane. A fire breaks out here on the engine, and Gordo can see it, and he basically tells Ed, "You got to get out of there, man."
So what would normally happen is you would just shut down the fuel consumption to that engine. That would put the fire out, and you'd still have one engine to maneuver. So
he does do that. We see him shut off
Yeah.
the fuel, but I don't know.
I don't understand why he had to eject, but I guess there was some reason.
Gordo's on the comm saying, "You got to eject. You got to get out, man." So we see Ed puts down his
Gordo's
visor.
like, I can see ants on your wing. Oh, no.
Get out! There's ants.
Get out! There's all these ants. They're in your engine.
Gordo puts down the visor, or sorry, Ed puts down the visor on his helmet here, and he pulls the eject. And to see this ejection was quite like dramatic. You know, I remember the one.
Very good.
I think about the one in Top Gun, since we brought up Top Gun. You know, where Goose hits the top there and breaks his neck. Right. You know, like it wouldn't take much to get killed here. As Ed launches out of the plane, and then he's way up there. This would be scary as
I
hell.
do like the fact that he ejects from the actual seat as well, which is something that they don't show in a lot of movies. Like they always come down with the seat. It's like, no, that's not what usually happens.
No, right? Because we see that the seat separates from him, and then the parachute comes out.
And then the parachute comes out, which pulls him away from the seat. So.
The seat, then we see like drops here into the water, and he's got a long way down into the
Well, you don't
Gulf
see
of
the
Mexico.
splash though.
No, you don't see it. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
In terms of all the visuals,
But
right?
he's bailed out over the Gulf of Mexico, which I don't know if we're going to be canceled for calling it the Gulf of Mexico, but it's the Gulf of
And
Mexico.
if we're canceled by those people, then we don't want them anyway.
We're fine.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, so that is the episode. In all the scenes that happened, everything we saw, a lot of things we thought. And now we'd like to go to a transition in the show we call Fun Facts with Adam.
Fun facts with Adam.
Fun facts with Adam.
Fun Facts with Adam.
All right,
Come on,
let's
Kevin.
go.
Come on, everybody else did it, Kevin.
Kevin ain't gonna sing. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not much of a joiner. It's
Yeah.
fine.
That's true. You are.
He's not.
Too much
I
red
agree.
tape. Okay.
That's right.
Just minor facts, but I'm a Ramblin' Man by Waylon Jennings was in this one. Loverboy, Working for the Weekend, and then I've Got You Under My Skin by Cole Porter, sung by Frank Sinatra. They do four songs per episode, including the title. This is the way they do things here. Now, like every other one, it's really hard to find facts, but just a couple things here. Let's talk about Sally Ride, because she was a formidable woman, but also important to the space program. So she served as the Capcom for the second and third space shuttle flights. And the Capcom is the person that communicates with the crew on the shuttle. So she was actually at mission control doing that job for a while. Then she became and developed the shuttle's remote manipulator system, which was the Canada arm. So she developed how that all works once Canada shipped them the arm and was part of that install team.
And look, you can call her at 555-555-5555.
At the University of Connecticut, of course.
She was the first American woman in space and the third woman ever in space after two Soviet women. And the youngest
cast was good. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The youngest woman in space at 32 years old. Right. She was part of NASA until 1987 when she resigned. And unfortunately, she died in 2012 of cancer at a young age. But she's key to the space program and really important. So I like the fact that she's now a cast member. So I'm eager to see what they do with her.
Yeah, she's like a character in the show, and like we had someone playing Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin in the first season.
Turn off your reverb.
It's not reverb. He's becoming godlike.
Oh, I had no idea my reverb was still on.
What does Dave need with a spaceship?
I thought you just thought all my comments were hilarious.
Well, they were, just not for what you thought they were.
So another thing that I've been wondering about is that after, they train all day long, they all go to the outpost and drink, hard liquor. And, back in the 70s, they were actually allowed to do that. But nowadays they are on strict regulations. They can't drink while in training or in space.
Yeah.
But actually, the Soviets sent up cognac up in, during their missions, because they thought it would help relax the cosmonauts back in the day.
Oh, yes. Prescription cognac.
Yes. Medicinal only.
For relaxation purposes.
A couple other things. So I was reminded of something when we're talking about, that whole discussion between Daniel and the sister-in-law, but it came back to me as Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali, and he gave a famous speech. And he was drafted, of course, and refused to go. And this is what he said, and this is quoting, okay? So why should they ask me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles from home to drop bombs and bullets on brown people in Vietnam, while so-called Negro people in Louisville are treated like dogs and denied simple human rights? No, I'm not going 10,000 miles from my home to help murder and burn another poor nation simply to continue the domination of white slave masters of the darker people of the world over. This is the day when such evils must come to an end. I've been warned that to take such an stand would put my prestige in jeopardy and could cause me to lose millions of dollars, which accrue me as to me as the champion. But I've said it once and I'll say it again. The real enemy of my people is right here. I will not disgrace my religion, my people, or myself by becoming a tool of the enslaved who are fighting for their own justice, freedom, and equality. If I thought this war was going to bring freedom and equality to 22 million of my people, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow. But I either have to obey the laws and land and the laws of Allah. I have nothing to lose but standing up for my beliefs, so I will go to jail. We've been in jail for 400 years. So that was Cassius Clay, later Muhammad Ali, on his stance about going to Vietnam.
Good speech.
Yeah. One more, and I'll leave it sort of on a lighter note, but the whole idea of the space handshake. In 1975, there was actually a U.S. and Soviet Union docked the Soyuz and the Apollo. It was called the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project, and was humanity's first international space mission where they put the two ships together and actually did shake hands together. This was the unofficial end to the space race back then.
The unofficial,
1975.
Because once we're nice to Russians, we can't keep competing with them.
Well, I mean, Russia was also, even in the 70s, spending money trying to keep up with the U.S. they didn't have, and they just abandoned the space program at that point.
Right. They wouldn't have any more money in this timeline. Or maybe I don't know. Does some virtue of getting to the moon first maybe make them have more money? But what's happening?
Oh, it's okay. Nothing. Jackson's running around.
Oh. Okay. Well, thank you, Adam. You have any more facts for us?
Let me just see if there's anything else worth talking about. Pathfinder. Let's talk about Pathfinder. Pathfinder wasn't the name of a real NASA space shuttle orbiter, but it was a name given to a test vehicle constructed in 1977 out of steel and wood. It was later placed on display in the Great Space Shuttle Exhibition in Tokyo in the early 80s, and it's now in Huntsville, Alabama, where it's undergoing a restoration.
Cool. All right. Well, the Pathfinder name explained. Thank you, Adam. And we are going to move into our ratings for this episode. Put down some scores. Now, we have some scores to catch up with Heather on. And Jody was missing last week as well. Heather, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
I'm going to give 8s across the board for all these 3 episodes. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff in there. The storyline is happening. We're moving things forward for the back end of the season.
Okay, fair. Thank you. Jody, do you want to give us rules of engagement? Last week's episode?
I would say that was a 7.5.
Okay, and then
this episode I think is at 8 as well. I agree with Heather.
Okay. Adam, you're up.
I want to remark mine. So 8 for last week,
Okay.
8.5 for this week.
All right, 8.5. Okay, and you were previously a 9 for last week, so
Yeah. I gave it because of that scene between the Baldwins, really. So I want to take it down a bit.
Yeah, I liked this one. I think I was a little higher on the previous episode, so I'm going to 8 myself. Kevin.
I would do an 8, but I think I'm going to do an 8.5 just because of your opening of this podcast, all your introductions.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I feel like I
Dave
heard that.
is the producer extraordinaire. We know this.
Well, thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you. Jeff will catch up with next time. So
I can't believe he didn't give last week a 10 with the Leda coming back. Jeff.
That's why it's at an 8.
He was so excited though, he just couldn't
He did like the
He
last
couldn't
episode.
even watch it.
He'd be so angry this episode, though. Like,
Yeah, because she's
she's
not in
back, but not.
He's not there.
it. She's not in this
What's the
one.
point?
I think she's back in the next episode though. So get ready. We're averaging an 8.2. So this is actually our highest rated episode so far this season, but of just us. It's not as highly rated by IMDb compared to the others. The previous episode rated a little higher, and episode 1 slightly below that. So, but we are finishing up the 2 episodes directed by Andrew Stanton with this one, and we are moving on to the next 2. The first of which is called The Wait, directed by Mira Menon. And The Wait.
And I recognize the writer's name. One of the writers is Joe Manosky, whose name I recognize from Star Trek.
He's a Star Trek writer, absolutely, yes. And Nicole Beatty also helped co-write this one. As we're looking ahead to The Wait, you can see Gordo, and I can tell you that the song "The Wait" by the band features in this episode.
I was just looking that up. I love that song.
Me too.
Who cares about the band?
Canadian greats.
Not Jody, obviously.
Robbie Robertson.
Unless it's Nirvana or some like Alice in Chains thing, he's like not for it.
It's a great song.
Anyway,
Do you think my music is just Nirvana?
it's whatever
and
Gen
Alice
X
in
stuff you're
Chains?
on. I don't know. I don't know. I imagined Guns N' Roses or something. I don't know.
Hey,
So-
don't be talking shit about Guns N' Roses around me, my friend.
all right. Well, it's all in that November rain. All right. Well, yes. So we'll see you next Monday. We are on hiatus this week right now for Star Trek: The Next Generation. We just finished up season 2, if you didn't know. We just covered the amazing clip show called Shades of Grey this past
Actually,
Thursday.
we finished up season 2 the week prior to this episode.
Yes.
Because that was the true season 2 ending.
Well, that's not true, but
That is
I
true.
understand your
I
point.
just said it. It's
What was our Dave? What was our collective mark again on that one? Like score?
On Shades of Grey?
I don't even think did I give you a rating?
2.8. You gave a 0, Jody. You gave a 0.
That's pretty
That's
high.
accurate.
2.8.
That's
pretty
pretty
high.
accurate.
It's because I gave it a 4. I was pretty generous. Because there was a
I
couple
should
things
pull
I
a
did like.
Davin and say it's a -10.
Well, you would. But next week, we're gonna wait to start season 3 of Next Generation until we cover season 3 of Strange New Worlds, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, starting up on July 17th. I'm actually gonna be in Halifax that night, so Davin is going to be hosting that premiere for Strange New
It's
Worlds.
fine. There will be 8 episodes that are good, and then there will be 2 musical episodes. So.
And Jody will hate them.
I
so-
already broke the entire season 3 arc there for you.
Yes,
Space
Jody knows
Rhapsody
what's up,
Part
so-
2.
Yeah. Well, and I think those are all our plugs right now, unless I've forgotten anything anyone wants to mention. But yeah,
When's the
thanks
next
so
radio
much.
theater?
Good question.
The
We should do
fans
another radio
want
theater.
that, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
They
talk
want
to the
more
Let's
producers.
get at it.
Dave.
I'll talk to the producers and get one going. So, and
We
it's
need
been-
another Dave Picard as Picard, I think.
I am always happy to be Picard, in whether he's English or French or something else.
Who knows?
He's
It's always a mystery.
something else.
He's always a mystery when Dave does it.
I can't quite place your accent. Where
I think you should do a German version of Picard for one of them.
I did do that one where I was like Colonel Clink. When I was
Yeah,
you were. Yeah,
that was a fun voice to do. Take over the world. All right. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Tune in next time for the next installment for All Mankind, The Wait, and hopefully I'll have Jeff back post sleep study. And glad to have you back, Heather, and the whole panel.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time here on Live Long and Podcast. You have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.